Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning in from in the world. My name is Naomi Empowers, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to another episode of the Naomi Empowers Show. We do this every single Sunday at 8 p.m. British Summer Time, 3 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, and midday if you're on the West Coast. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have had some technical difficulties. My technical difficulties have been called children. They have been muddling with all my stuff. This thing is crazy. I'm trying to go live on Instagram at the same time. I don't know what's happening with that. I think I'm going to put my phone down because it doesn't seem to be connecting. Honestly, everything that could have gone wrong today has officially gone wrong. But before we even get started, in fact, where are my manners? Let me just give you some background as to why we do this and what this is all about. So the Naomi Empowers Show is really your weekly dose of life lessons, inspiration, and empowerment. It's to set you up for the week ahead. And really, we collect valuable life lessons from successful entrepreneurs in their various fields and pass them on to you so that you have the opportunity to grow, to develop, and to learn more, to become more, to have more, and to achieve more. So you guys know how I do this every single week. I love to know who we have on and where you are tuning in from. So please do let me know where you're tuning in from. Hey, Nicole. Oh, thank you very much. Listen, I hope you all can't hear my fan in the background. Can we take a minute to just talk about this heat, please? Am I like the only person who is thinking like this is actually a bit too much? I have been struggling. In fact, let me tell you a story. The other day, my cousin calls me and hey Phoebe, nice, thanks for joining us. Hey Bianca, thank you so much for joining us. So let me tell you all a story. My cousin, love her, but she's crazy officially. She calls me up and says, come Nate, let's take our kids to the park. She lived around the corner from me, so we go to the park. Who asked her? Anyway, I came prepared. I was prepared. I brought this little tent thing that has like provide us shade, protect us from all the insects. It took myself, my two children, her and her daughter. It took the five of us to try to put this tent up. And believe you me, it was pathetic. We could not put the tent up whatsoever. We worked up such a sweat trying to put the blasted thing up. We decided, you know what? It's not worth it. We were exhausted. And then, so we decided, you know what? Let's just relax in the sun. Who asked me to do that? Listen, by the time I left that park that day, I honestly thought I was going to die. Seriously, I thought sunstroke had taken me. I drove straight to my parents' house. I had to lock myself in the bathroom. I thought I was going to throw up. It was terrible. So, guys, you know what? I'm having a bit of a rough time. Then come to today. Several showers for the day. So if you guys see me dripping, just pray for me. It's been really rough. It's been really rough. Then the technical difficulties. My goodness. But you know what? This is real life. We've made it. We are here, and hopefully we'll be able to go through this show without any more technical hiccups. And guys, I need to apologize for last week because one of my good friends who watched the show was sending me some clips of how I was getting on last week as my children marched through the room. And let me tell you, it was hilarious. But I'm hoping that this week they have really listened to my words and understood that they are not allowed in here when mummy is live. They are banned. And anyway, this week my mum is here. So hopefully she will crack the whip and keep them out of this room. I am really hoping so. Who else do we have? Hey, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Bianca. I'm a lot better now that the show's actually live. I'm a lot calmer. I can still feel the breeze from my fan. So I am all good. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm excited for this evening's show. I have a very special guest who is in the waiting room now. He has a lot of wisdom and a lot of value to share with each and every one of you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a short clip to give you a bit of an idea as to who this man is. And then once that clip is done, the next face you will see on your screen, and maybe even the next voice you will hear, will be none other than my good friend, Thomas Mwadime. Stay tuned, everyone.
If there's anything that I want to be remembered for, I think it's for being my true self, for being honest, authentic, compassionate, intelligent, competent, humble, teachable. These are some of the words that come to my mind when I think about what I'm aspiring to be and what I try and present to the world. In terms of what inspires me, I'd probably say people and minds that challenged the status quo of their day, who went against the grain, who had the courage to articulate their unpopular opinions for the good of those that were around them. Those are the type of people that inspire me. Yeah.
Hey, Thomas.
Hey, mate.
Madness. How you doing?
Absolute madness, but we're here now. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
So, Thomas, I've got a question for you. Before we even go anywhere,
Yeah.
Should we try this whole Instagram live thing one more time?
All right, let's give it a go. Why not?
All right, guys, please bear with us. What we're attempting to do has never been done before, and not on this show. So I'm going to give it a go. Are you still live at the minute, Tom?
I'm going live right now. So if you go on my thing, you should see me live, and then just request to come on live with me.
But isn't everyone going to hear us talking like twice? Do I have to put down my volume?
Yeah, turn down your volume on your phone, and then we should be good.
Okay. Let's see.
I don't know if you can see me.
I can. Let me request.
There you are.
Oh, dear. Let's see. Why is Thomas having me doing these technical things at this point? Only God knows. Is it going to work?
It is working. I can see you in just a second. Is my Wi-Fi going to hold up? This is where we find out.
Oh, let me turn the volume down. Oh,
Perfect.
sorry, everyone. Okay, brilliant. This is exciting. Oh, my goodness, guys. This is the first time. Oh, dear, what have I done? I've messed it up. I've messed it up already. Honestly. Okay, we're good?
We're good.
All right, lovely. So for the first time ever, I would like to welcome those of you who are joining us on Instagram Live. Thank you so much for being here. And I think I might try and do this more often.
Why not?
So to those of you who are tuned in on Facebook, please do me a favor. Go ahead and press the share button somewhere at the bottom of the screen so that we can invite other people on so they can get to hear this conversation. And for those of you who are joining us on YouTube, my YouTube family, please go ahead and press that subscribe button somewhere at the bottom of your screen, but don't forget to press that little notification bell so that you can be reminded and alerted every time we go live with another episode of the Naomi Empowers Show. Gosh, Tom,
Yo,
it's great to finally have you on the show.
it's great to be here.
This has been a long time coming. We've spoken about this for some time now, so it's nice to see that this has actually happened.
Indeed.
So now, Tom, I do this with everyone. Before we even get into what we're going to be discussing today, I want you to introduce yourself. But when you're introducing yourself today, I am really not looking for the humble version. I am looking for you to be bringing out all the receipts and letting the people know exactly who you are. So, Tom, over to you.
Who am I? This is always such an intimidating question. But who am I? I'm a husband. I'm a Kenyan boy. I'm a stylist. Although during lockdown, because stores have been closed, I'm transitioning into a new business, but I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
I think I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a person who challenges the status quo. I'm a what else can what other word can I use? Maverick, maybe on a certain level. So yeah, I think those are all kind of things that go in the direction of who I am.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here with us. Let's have a brief chat about lockdown, actually. How have you found these past few months?
At the beginning of lockdown, I was one of these people who deluded themselves into thinking I was going to learn Mandarin, I was going to read 10 books. And literally from about the end of week one, life had other plans. And so it's been really busy, but in a good way. I've been doing a lot of stuff with youth ministries, which has been fun. I've been doing other bits and pieces as well for my own business development. But it's been really busy. My wife has been busy because she just carried on working from home. So I've had to find things to do so I don't irritate her. So yeah. So I've been busy.
It certainly sounds like it. Well, Thomas, I was excited that you accepted the invitation to join the show today because,
For those of you who don't know, Thomas and I have known each other for very many years. I can't say how many years it has been. I think he's one of those faces that have just been around like forever. However, whenever we do get into our conversations and have our discussions, it's always valuable. It never ever feels like a waste of time. And I know that you have a lot of wisdom and value to share with all of us today. So I'm looking forward to us having an honest and open and a really frank discussion about some of the lessons that life has taught you on this journey that we call life. And so I want to get straight into it, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
you know, this entire show is really based around one fundamental question. And that question is, what is the most valuable life lesson that you have learned along your journey?
I thought about this a lot, and I think how I can sort of distill all of the lesson down into like a sentence is just to be myself. Whatever it is I actually am, it's required in the world, and it will make room for me in the world. So I think when you're a child, you want to be like everybody else because you want to fit, you want to make friends. As you grow up, you begin to realize that people who get ahead are people who are bringing something unique to the table. But then fear kicks in, and you don't want to be seen as weird. You don't want to ruin chances for yourself. People tell you that if you want to succeed, do these 3, 4, 5 things.
Yeah.
And so a fear begins to develop that if I don't do one of those things, I'm gonna end up in a ditch somewhere and lose my way.
Yeah.
So you have to power through that bit and realize that actually being my authentic, unapologetic self is required.
Yeah.
If I'm doing what everybody else has told me to do, it means I'm being like everybody else, which means one of us is redundant, or most of us are redundant.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I quickly realized, I think during my early 20s, going into my mid 20s, whatever it is you are, just be that. Let the chips fall where they will.
I guess that must, being yourself in a world where so many people are trying to be someone else, I guess must take a lot of courage.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of courage. It's a combination of nature as well. So whatever, like how your personality manifests itself. So, I remember when I was 19, I was going to uni, and I'd had some experiences in my earlier educational life, which kind of made me very afraid in the education system. Like I didn't feel like I could be myself. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't feel like I could really achieve within that framework.
Let me pause you and stop you right there. We need to go right into that. So talk to me about that time when you felt like you just couldn't be yourself.
So what happened was I was in year 9, I think, maybe year 10, and I did some kind of like pre-test, some kind of mock test, and I didn't do very well in maths.
Okay.
And my dad, being the African dad that he is, he's like, "No, we're going back to your school. Something's obviously gone wrong. I'm going to go and talk to your teacher because I know you're smarter than this." And so he set up a meeting with my head of maths, and they were discussing the results I got in this particular test. And my dad was like, something must be going wrong. Maybe it's a focus issue. Maybe he just didn't apply himself. Allow him to take this test again. Like, you can change the questions. Allow him to take the test again. If he doesn't score well, then fine. But if he gets a better score, then you need to move him to the top set, because this I know he's better than this.
Okay.
And my teacher in my presence said, your son can't achieve, he's not capable of achieving anything more than the D. And so even if we redo the test, it's not gonna be better.
Wow.
He's just incapable of more than that. And I remember hearing it and feeling affected, but I didn't really understand how it had affected me. I just kind of internalized it and put it in the back of my head somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I did everything to avoid. I took a gap year. I decided to do some bits and pieces during gap year. But finally the time came and my dad was like, "Look, you've got to apply for uni. This is the deadline." So I applied and I got into Brunel, and I was doing mechanical engineering because that's what I had done. My African parents told me it's either engineering, be a lawyer, or be a doctor. So I picked engineering.
Those are the only options, right?
So I did engineering because I'd done that before. And I just remember being in classes, having anxiety attacks, having mental blocks, just feeling like I was having a meltdown every time I was in a test situation, especially. And I just figured I'm not academic. So I came back to my dad and I prepared some massive 20-slide PowerPoint presentation about why I shouldn't go back to uni, why I was more entrepreneurial. why I can't succeed in that environment and why I would do better out in the real world right now. It's a waste of money. I don't want to do it if I'm not going to get a first, and I don't think I'm going to get a first. So it's just better for everybody that I drop out. Anyway, my dad, to his credit,
How did that go down?
it was actually a very civilized conversation.
I'm surprised.
which I didn't expect to happen, but it actually went down quite well. He was reasonable. He heard me, and so we came to an agreement. He said, "Look, you can have a year out of uni, and try and figure out this entrepreneurial thing you're talking about. And if you don't make it, if you're not onto something viable, then you'll have to go back to uni, and you're just gonna have to push through." So I said, "Okay, this is fair enough. That I've got 12 months to figure this thing out." So in that 12 months, I did some various hustles. I did this, I did the other. And as we were approaching the end of the 12 months, I was applying for a job for Motorola. Some of you young'uns don't know what Motorola means. But back when Motorola used to mean something, I was applying for a role as a systems manager, basically just looking after some IT software that looked after internal process. So I went for the interview. I thought I smashed the interview, but there was another woman who had more experience. She got offered the position, but her company offered her more money to stay, and so I was the next best person. So they offered me the role. So now I was in this role at 19, 20 years old, earning like big boy money, and I didn't even understand how I got the job. But I was like, all right, I'm gonna learn how to do this as I go along.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked out. The first month or two were a bit rough, where you're in the office and you're like, how did I end up here? I have no idea what I'm doing. But I figured it out. And then I was able to go back to my dad and say, look, I'm earning 30K. I'm 19. I think I've qualified for your terms and conditions. I don't need to go back to uni. And so that's how that kicked off. I decided I wasn't, although it was a bit of a false conclusion, I was academic. I just had trauma that I didn't understand because of the education experiences before. But it was the beginning of really understanding who I was and beginning this process of introspection, being confident enough to face who I am and go against the grain, even when my entire community was like, have you lost your mind? They were saying to my dad, have you lost your mind to allow your son to do this?
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of that part.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. I've got a question that's come in from Patrick. And Patrick says, do you think uni was the right move? Did it fit your person, passion, pathway? I hated the education system. Anxiety killed me also. What advice would you give for anyone starting uni today? Great question.
Yeah, so really good question. Thank you, Patrick. I would say that uni could have been the right fit for me had I had the right counseling earlier in order to resolve the issues that took place when I was in year 10 with this maths teacher. So his comments to me created a lot of insecurity around education. It created a lot of self-doubt. It just made me think I wasn't capable. And I vowed within myself to never put myself in a position to be judged in this setting again. Because I never wanted to take another test and for someone to again say you're dumb. So for that reason, I kind of just had a mental block against education. But had I had those issues resolved earlier, I think I could have excelled at uni. I don't think uni is for everybody, but I think for me, I had and I think a lot of black boys deal with this in the education system because it's just not set up to be an ally to them. It's actually adversarial towards them in a passive kind of way. And so a lot of us kind of leave secondary school not believing we are able to succeed in the education environment. So it's a bit of a false positive in the sense that it was the trauma that made me think I wasn't fit for uni, but actually in later life I discovered I could have excelled.
That's interesting. Well, thank you, Patrick. I really do hope that answers a few of your questions that you raised there. Tom, I really want to get into this whole idea of being oneself. You see, I'm of the opinion that the best thing that I can be is myself.
Sorry, Nay, I'm getting feedback that our live is echoing, so I think let's just get off the live. We'll figure out the technical later.
Okay.
Sorry, if you guys go on Facebook and on Naomi Empower's YouTube, you can carry on watching us there, but we're gonna have to cut this. Sorry. Sorry, we'll carry on.
We tried. It didn't work, guys. It didn't work. So, Tom, I've always been of the opinion, not always actually, because I think, growing up, my experiences taught me to be the perfect chameleon. And in that, I meant that I could fit into almost any crowd. I could adopt almost any personality so as to fit in. And I guess that's because of some of my experiences. And I've shared before on the show that, you know, being the daughter of a pastor, and, you know, people from church always having an opinion of who I should be and how I should be, being the daughter of a head teacher and people having an opinion of who I should be and how I should be. And as a child, for the sake of peace, really, and for people to just kind of get off my back and leave me alone, I would be all things to all men. I would be whoever you needed me to be, just so that you left me alone. But what I quickly realized is that if I'm not myself, or if I'm not being myself, I'm simply a cheap imitation of someone or something else. And if I want to give of my best, I need to show up as myself. And I want to know if you can relate to any of that. And if you can, how it kind of showed up and played out in your life.
No, 100%. You know, something that really resonated with me from one of your previous guests, Paul Bordeaux, he said that in church was the first place he learnt how to lie. And I think this is many of our experiences. But again, church or any environment becomes a much diminished experience if everybody isn't allowed the space to bring themselves to the table. And so I think this never plays out well. It keeps the peace, but the cost of that piece is very expensive. It means all of the innovation that people could have brought, all of the different thinking, all of the different perspective and different interpretation of things that people could have brought is stifled because everybody's trying to be this cookie cutter person. And it happens in many environments. It just so happens that church is one of the ones that it's really rife in. So I think the whole idea of being all things to all men is a very short-term strategy, although it's one that is given to us almost by default from the beginning, especially as we kind of matriculate into adult life. It's don't go against the grain. This is a tested method. Just go to uni, get a job, get a mortgage, get married, have kids, and that's a good life. And any deviation from that, people begin to look at you. So, but I think the deviation is where all the richness is. So yeah.
Tom, I really want to know if we can kind of get maybe a little beneath the surface right now, and I'm interested to just find out about a time when you were not living your authentic self, what that looked like, what impact it had on you, how it made you feel.
I think, again, unfortunately, and it's a sad. It's a sad kind of commentary on church, but I think church is really where I was the most inauthentic, because you're given an idea of what it is we're supposed to be here and what it is a Christian is. And what it is a Christian is supposed to be, and so you kind of shy away. Sorry, I'm
here busting up.
And it's just gone haywire. But anyway, you're trying to sort of be this acceptable person so you can be in the community. You also understand and you're beginning to develop an awareness of who you actually are. And then you realize there's a cognitive dissonance that begins to happen, because the person who I actually am is incompatible with this environment. Or if I'm gonna make it compatible, I'm gonna have to fight a lot of battles, and you just can't be bothered. And so you just become this fake person. You become this other person. And so on Sabbath, Saturday, Sunday, wherever your context is, you become another person. And as soon as Sabbath is over, you go back to your real self. And at some point, you begin to feel really quite sick about that because you realize that I'm lying to other people, but actually more grievously, I'm lying to myself. And that's, again, another trigger to begin figuring out, what do I want to do with myself? Do I want to pay the cost of being myself in all environments? Or do I want to pay the cost of lying about who I am? Figure out which one is more expensive. And I just began to realize that being somebody else is more expensive.
Talk to me about the cost of being someone else.
As you grow up, you begin to realize the cost of many things. You when you're young, you kind of just do things because it's convenient, because it's expedient, because it's the road of least resistance. But you then begin to realize that all of these decisions have a cost, and many of them are buy now, pay later. So you don't pay the cost immediately. It erodes you slowly until you realize you've paid a cost that you didn't bargain to pay. And so the cost of being somebody else is that you waste time that you could have been spending developing who you actually are.
Wow.
And so when I was in my early 20s, being this cookie cutter Christian and just doing the conservative Adventist thing, was 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years wasted that I could have developed this ability, or maybe this nature that I have to see another way, to see another perspective, to see another solution to a problem. Or so who knows what I could have lent to the table had I developed that from an earlier place. And it took many experiences to reach this place now at 35, where I just don't care. And I'm just like, I'm going to say what I think, and I'm going to say how I see it. If it brings value, we all win. If it doesn't bring value, I was true to myself.
It's interesting. I'm interested about your use of the word waste. You said you wasted about 10 or so years. I'm interested in that perspective. Why do you see it as a waste?
Because I was developing my character, not myself. And when I say character, I don't mean, kind, compassionate. I mean my character is in James Bond, my alter ego. Character is in I was playing a character.
Right,
so I spent 10 years working on how this character should present, how this character speaks, how this character is seen. And Thomas was languishing in the sidelines. And I only found Thomas in my late 20s, early 30s. And I only began to work on Thomas from then. And so I wonder what Thomas could have been had I been working on him from 1920 instead of this character, this persona that I was playing. And so it's wasted because the persona means nothing in the world. The persona can't get me anywhere. The persona can't get me to the place I instinctively know I need to be.
Yeah.
And so developing that is it's like putting water into a leaky bucket. It's not, you're not going to get any return on investment on that. Not any long-term return anyway. Yeah.
I've got a comment. I think it is a comment, not a question, from Phoebe. She says, being someone else is expensive. Love that expression. It takes so much energy, time, and even actual money trying to keep up with others' definition of how your life should be. Wow. Wow. That's it. It's very true. And I guess, I think so many of us growing up, regardless of our context, have perhaps experienced that when we're trying to find ourselves in the world. Like we might watch TV and get an idea of who we should be.
Yeah.
We speak to our parents and they have their ideas and opinions of who we should be. Yeah. Then we come up in a society that will kind of dictate to us who we should be. So I guess, Thomas, the question that I've got for you is, with all those different voices and with all those different ideas, how does one actively find who they're really supposed to be? How do you quiet the noise and find the truth?
That's a great question. How do you quiet the noise? I think it's when you begin to realize how vacant the relationships you form under the pretense are, how vacant the opportunities that come to you as a result of the persona are. It's like biting into a Greg's pasty. It's more pastry than it is filling. You take a bite and you realize I have just bitten into nothing. Like I've been scammed. That's exactly it. You just get to a place where you begin to look and you realize, what am I actually getting for all of this pretense? My relationships are not where I need them to be because I'm pretending. The things that the opportunities that are opening for me are not really for me. They're for this character. So I even when they come, I don't want to be in that position. And so whether that's positions in church leadership, I don't know how much of your audience is from that church environment, but whether the position is church related or academic, you're in a course or a degree that you don't want to be in because it's the right degree for your persona, but not for you. So you begin to realize at some point, I'm paying a lot for something that isn't actually giving me anything back. And that in itself should be a pivotal moment. It certainly was for me. And I think maybe on a more human level, it's the relationship side where you begin to really realize I've been bringing fakery to the table, and therefore what I'm getting back is empty. And I think maybe relationship is something that is closest to our essence as human beings.
Yeah.
When we're not getting back from relationship what we need to be getting back, it just compounds the feeling of emptiness and futility, really. So I think it's from that. Exactly. But life serves you up many Greg's pasties, unfortunately, when you're not being yourself. So it's when you begin to realize the cost. And that whole idea of cost is in so many areas. I realize the more I grow that life is just economics, just in a different veil. And so it's about supply and demand. Am I paying too much for the thing I'm getting? The thing I'm offering, is it in demand, or am I just making this up? And so it's this thing of cost. What am I getting for what I'm paying? Is what I really began to grapple with, and that was a pivotal moment for me.
I guess I'm really trying to. You're definitely talking to us about the experience and the cost, and I think that's a really powerful point. Because sometimes we don't weigh that up. But I'm interested to know if you can pinpoint maybe any one situation or something that I don't know, some sort of scenario that you found yourself in that had a really negative impact on either your emotional or your mental health as a result of trying to be something that you were not and resisting the essence of who you truly were.
Yeah, I think it was well, it was many of my early relationships, but for the sake of not getting into a muddy place, we don't want to go there. We don't want to do that. But actually, one of the real places where I began to see that was during my time at Motorola as an employee, because I quickly, once all of the novelty of, oh my God, I'm earning all this money, I finally vindicated my decision to not be at uni. No one can get on my back now. Once I got over the novelty of all of that, I began to realize I'm not enjoying this. Like the money can get you through a certain amount of time of feeling that way, but there always comes a point where you're like, I don't care about the money. I am miserable. Every time I come into this space, it's taking away a significant part of what I am. And so I realized that looking good to everybody, what's being in this role that everybody thought was amazing. Oh my goodness, Thomas has done so well. All of his friends have only just graduated. He's like, light years ahead of them in terms of earnings or the I don't know, the fanciness of the position or whatever. Making everybody else think I look amazing was just again, I was just not getting any return on that investment again. I was miserable, and the money wasn't enough anymore. And so I remember when I handed in my resignation, I had this plan of my first business that I incorporated, registered, and actually really began to work on was a business in online fashion retail, or something like ASOS back in like 2007. And so I quit my high-paying job, and I went and I was just doing various little hustles, and I ended up working in a hotel as a doorman, as a bellman.
Your parents loved you at that time, Thomas.
Oh my goodness, my parents were literally like watching a car crash happening in slow motion. They were like, we came from Kenya, we sacrificed everything just for this goats to come and do this. So my parents were not thrilled, but they were conflicted because they were not thrilled about the immediate situation.
Yeah,
they could also sense that we see there could be something here. Like we know this boy, we've known him since he was a kid. We know that he thrives in these kind of situations where his back is against the wall and blah blah blah. And so there was something, especially my dad, that was like, all right, let me just give him a chance. Let me give him one more year. He will do something. I know he will do something. And so I was working as a bellman at this hotel, and I was hustling to try and get money in order to invest in this business.
Okay.
And I managed to sort of scrape a few bits together, get some concepts together, get this, that, and together. And an investor that was like a family friend, somebody from church who was very wealthy, decided to kind of try and go on this journey with me. And and was willing to invest a certain degree of investment in the business. I was young, I was naive. There was many things I didn't know, but I had gumption. So I was doing this thing, and bear in mind, I'm looking horrible to everybody now because I'm like 23, 22, 23, 24. All of my mates have graduated now. They're all in graduate roles. They're beginning to catch up to where I was when I was in the previous role. So it's like, Tom, like, what the heck is going on? Like, they're getting I've gone backwards. They're in places now. They're driving decent cars, and I'm working as a bellman, living on people's sofas between my mom's house and friends in London. So I'm looking horrific right now, like as far as other people are concerned. And then 2008 hit, and my investor didn't want to carry on. That to do also with the fact that I was young and there's a lot of things I didn't get right, and so he pulled out. And any other investors that were interested in coming on board, 2008 happened. The markets were crashing. They were pulling their money.
Yeah.
And so that was a really kind of testing period of time there. And so I went on to do various other bits and pieces as I went through another 4 businesses that didn't work out. In fact, another 5 businesses that didn't work out in various things, in fashion, in other things. I think I did something. I had a concept for something in recruitment. I had a concept for another thing. All of them went belly up. And so I now reached a place where I was doing horribly, but I felt so amazing about myself because I was like, I am on the knife's edge here, but I am also at the forefront of me really pushing the boundaries of pursuing where it is I know I need to be. And so as I knew I couldn't be an employee. I don't have the temperament for it. I used to be insubordinate all the time. Like if I even in my other smaller roles, if my manager wasn't smarter than me and I wasn't able to learn from him, it was a bad mixture. Like I wasn't able to respect. I wasn't able to. It was just not good. I knew I wasn't designed to be an employee. But now I was on the road to entrepreneurship. It was difficult. I was broke. I was looking bad, but I felt like I was finally on the road of being myself.
Wow.
And I knew that that's where everything about me was designed to be in that place.
Yeah.
And so I knew this is just something I was going to have to take this on the chin. It was going to take as long as it was going to take, and it is what it is. But I felt like myself. I was in a bad place financially, economically, socially, but I felt the most myself I've felt in a long time.
Thomas, you have no idea how timely this is for so many reasons. And I'm going to take the comments and the questions that are coming in, guys. I'm not ignoring you. But, you know, it's funny because I have definitely been where you are. And in some ways, I guess I'm almost in that position right now, where I remember when I was offered a really high paying job after I completed my MBA, and I turned it down, much to the displeasure of my also African father, and much to the shock and horror of some of my uncles and male older cousins on my mum's Grenadian side as well. And I remember one of my uncles came round to the house and I told the story, and I told it like a good thing. Like, guys, I turned down this job because I'm pursuing my passion. And I'll never forget his face. His jaw dropped. And he looked at my mum and he's like, Laura, you didn't beat her. They just didn't get it. But here's the thing. When you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing, when you know the path that you're supposed to be on, anything else almost just feels like not enough. It's inadequate. You're not really living. You're just about existing. So Thomas, I can certainly relate, and I'm interested to get to know more about this story. But I want to bring in some of the comments and questions that are coming up. We've got a message and a question from Patrick. So he's definitely laughing at Caitlin, saying that her new motto is going to be "Don't be a Greg's pasty." So he says, Thomas, tell me about a time when you felt imposter syndrome. What did you do to overcome it? And what emotions, sorry, I ain't got my glasses, my children broke them. And what emotions were you experiencing? Great question.
That's a really good question. I'm actually in that place now. So as I said in the intro or at the beginning, I've had to transition away from my styling and fashion, which is where I've spent the last 5-6 years. And I've transitioned into, as your promotional poster was saying, into digital strategy. And so over lockdown, I kind of was doing a few bits and pieces, and I thought, let me give this a go. Let me try and get a client in this direction, like just a small client, and then I'll begin to sort of grow my competence from there. And I remember when somebody I knew from within the client contacted me and said, "Hey Tom, can you help us out with one or two bits? We've seen some things that you've done before, and I've seen some things that you've done before, and I think maybe you could have some good ideas for some bits that we're doing on social media as well as other spaces digitally." They didn't have the in-house team to be able to do it, so it began as a semi-favor for a friend of mine. They were going to sort of pay. And so I gave him some ideas, and he was like, "Oh, this is really good. You know, you should tell another person up the rung." So we had that meeting. They were like, "Oh, this is actually really interesting. This is really good. We love what you're saying. But until the CEO hears about it, we can't make the decision." So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to get found out now. The CEO, if I haven't been found out, the CEO is going to talk to me, and he's going to sniff something's wrong within 5 minutes. We had the Zoom call with the CEO. I'm talking, I'm pitching. And he's nodding, he's smiling. I'm like, is this guy hearing what I'm saying? All right, cool. He's nodding, he's smiling. After about 10, 15 minutes, he's like, "I love everything you're talking about. I really want to work with you. But this has to, send me the budget for how much everything's going to cost and how much you're going to cost." And we're having a board meeting on the Monday. And at that time, the board will make the decision. I was like, all right, cool. I'm definitely going to get rumbled at this point. The board, this is like 10, 15 people. They're gonna see the pit, and they're gonna say this guy is not legit. The board had their meeting, and I got the contract. I was literally, I was doing myself. I was saying to my wife, I'm hoping that they say no, because I don't feel like I'm ready to do this. And my wife switched at me. She was like, "How dare you say you hope they say no? It's gonna be money. It's gonna be experience. You can do this." So we had that whole conversation, but secretly in my head, I was hoping they say no. They came back with a yes, and now I was suddenly like in the middle of the whirlwind. I've now got to deliver. It's one thing to talk about it; it's another thing to deliver in the real world. So now, actually, to answer your question, I am in the imposter syndrome space now, and what I'm doing to work through it is that intelligent people are seeing value in what I'm talking about, and also I know I can do it. Like, I'm not lying to anybody. Like, within my head, I know I possess the skills to deliver.
You know it intellectually.
Yeah, intellectually in know it, but in my real world experience, I now have to deliver. But the real cornerstone is this: if I fail, I'm not gonna die. It's okay. If I fail, I'm not gonna implode. Nothing's gonna go wrong. It's gonna be okay. I'll just fail. They won't pay me half the money, but I will have a treasure trove of lessons, and I'll know what to do next time. And so when I kind of breathe and I tell myself that failure does not mean death, it suddenly becomes, it's cool, it's all right. If the worst thing that can happen is I just fail, then I'm actually in the top 1% of people in the world, because there's people out there in the world, if they fail, they're going to get killed. If they fail, they're going to get, I don't know, thrown off a building. My ancestors, if they failed, they would get killed in the plantation. My worst case scenario is that I just fail, the contract ends, I don't get half my money, I carry on with my life. And if that's the worst that I can pay, then I can afford to go. I can afford to go in and really do my best. Do you know what I mean? So it's that realization sinking in that calmed me down, and then I began to approach it systematically instead of emotionally. So what's the problem I'm solving today? How do I break that down into actionable items? What do I need to learn? What books and resources do I need to get to plug that gap? And I'm doing it. And I'm here. I'm now like in the second month of the contract. They love the work that I'm delivering, and the world has not ended. So I'm good.
Amazing. What an amazing story to really highlight that point that, you know what, when it comes to imposter syndrome and all these ideas that we have about ourselves within our own head, one of the best antidotes to it is just taking action and realizing, as you said, like, or asking ourselves the question, what is the worst that could happen? If all things failed, if everything that could go wrong did go wrong, what could be the possible outcome? Like, how bad could it really get?
And actually, just one more quick thing, Nate. It's also, that's the central thing, but I would say very closely second is surround yourself with honest people. So I've got brutally honest friends in my inner circle, like to a fault. So it's like, guys, I've got feelings, but can you calm down with me? But they're honest. And it cuts both ways. When I'm doing fantastic, they will be my biggest hype people. They will tell me to carry on. They will push me to them. But if I'm doing something rubbish, they'll be like, Tom, time out. Like, this is not what you should be doing. Cancel it. This ain't it, exactly. And you need people like that. You can't have people around you who just gas you up when and people who are so pessimistic that they always try and tell you not to do something that you should be doing. So your inner circle is critical. You have to make sure that you choose those people with wisdom.
Well, Patrick has come back to just say, great answer and advice for people watching who struggle with defeatist thoughts. And the outcome is never anywhere as close to what we visualize it to be.
100%.
A positive self-belief mindset is paramount. You know, I've often heard it said that the worst thing that can happen to us is a thought. And it's so true. I know, you know, so many people, self included, who the thought of what could go wrong or the thought of what other people may think has been enough to keep us trapped, to prevent us from taking those leaps of faith, from preventing us of, you know, taking the steps that we need to become the people that we were destined to be. So I really want everyone who is watching this now, whether live, whether on the replay, to make sure you really get that and take that. There is no harm in trying. If you're going to be able to be breathing at the end of it, if everything goes wrong, stick at it. You're on the right track. Here's the thing, we fail forward. We fail our way forward to success. And Tom, you know, there's so many things that you've said that I really would love to pick up on. And I'm going to see how much time I have to pick up on a few of these at least. But let me just bring in another question from our online audience. A comment from Facebook, Lesh. She says, Thomas, do you think living a lie is influenced by pleasing somebody instead of living your dream?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think the whole concept of lying to yourself is grounded in the principle of there's another entity that I need to satisfy before myself. Whether it's another person or just a space that you're in and you feel like in order to remain in this space, I must be something else. But it's always rooted in this idea of satisfying another party above and beyond yourself. And so, yes, I do. In short, yes, I think that is definitely the root cause. And I think once you realize that all of these people in 10 years time, not all, let's say 50% of these people in 10 years time won't even be in your life. It's a quick antidote to this. No one is an island. I'm not saying be reckless with people, but I'm saying this idea of pleasing people above your own interest is one that doesn't pay off in the long run. Because if I look back to when I was 19 or 17 or 18, the people whose opinions of me really held weight, I don't even talk to them anymore.
Wow.
They're not in my life anymore. I would say maybe 10-20% of the people that were in my life at that time are still in my life in any significant way today. And I think the idea of the wedding day is really the best illustration for this, because on the wedding day, we do something when planning wedding. Any of you who are married will remember, you do something when planning your wedding that is a microcosm of what we do in life. And what we do is we take all of our energy and resource to pleasing a bunch of people who will forget everything we did by tomorrow.
And we'll talk bad about your food.
And we'll still talk bad about your food. Literally, this is what happens in life. You invest so much of yourself into the opinions of people who will forget about all of this in a few weeks' time when you're still paying.
Yeah.
When you're still paying for this act of wanting to please them, they've moved on with their life. They've got their own problems. They're thinking about themselves. And so in life, it's the same thing. I think we pay too much for wanting to please other people. Please, Gus, you owe me a lot of money at this stage, actually, you personally. We do this a lot. And so I think it's a question of realizing who's going to be here throughout my entire life. And the only person who's going to be there through your entire life is you.
Yeah.
So you're the
guarantee.
That's a guarantee. You're not going to leave yourself. You're always going to be there. So you're the person who needs to be the shareholder that's paid first when anything is going out. And this is a lesson I learned. There's a book I read recently. I won't go into it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes, fantastic book. Fantastic.
Amazing book. And one of the things that one of the top pieces of advice that comes out of that is pay yourself first.
Yes.
And I know this is talking about financials, but in life, pay yourself first in the sense that, does it make me happy? Is it going to benefit me? Am I going to progress as a result of doing this? That's the first question. If the answer is yes, everybody else's feelings is secondary or tertiary. It's not a primary consideration. But to pay everybody else first and then give yourselves the crumb at the end doesn't make any sense.
Wow. Thomas, gosh, you've given us so many points here, and there's so many different ways this conversation can go from this point. But I'm also mindful of the time. Like, I can't believe almost an hour.
Is the time about my consideration to me? Because I can go on. I'm having fun. We can carry on.
All right. Well, if our audience is willing to stay, we'll keep going.
The audience doesn't know, we can push on.
All right, Tom, I want us to go back a bit. You said something that was really interesting that I really want us to dig a little bit deeper on. You were talking about this idea of course, and your most valuable lesson is to be yourself, be your authentic self. How do you marry that up with failure after failure after failure? For example, you spoke of launching at least 5 different ventures that failed. And let me just say quickly, just a little sidebar, I love the fact that you are almost boasting about these failures and putting it out there, because I think too often we have entrepreneurs who we see, or people that we see who have made it and are doing amazing things, and we often don't get to hear the backstory. We don't get to see or hear about the failures. So I want to know if we can just dig into that a little bit and to explore, if I am perpetually failing over and over and over again, do I ever question whether or not my authentic self is enough? How do I know if I am good enough if all I seem to do is go from failure to failure? How do I travel that part of my journey without being completely deflated, without being completely defeated, and feeling like, well, maybe the best that I can do is just simply not good enough?
You have to ask yourself a question: am I failing over the same hurdles? If you're failing over the same hurdles, then you're doing something wrong. A problem that made you fail last year should not be the problem that makes you fail this year. And if you're failing about the same problem, then you're not introspecting, you're not learning, and that's a problem. But if you're failing, as you said, failing forward, you're failing in new endeavors and in new territories and new areas, then this is it's university again. It's a lesson. It's an education environment. It's a place for you to be able to learn something that will make you better. And the reality is, it has taken me 5, 6, 7 failed businesses over the course of 11 years since I registered my first business, but really about 13 years since I dropped out of uni. It's taken me several failed businesses, failed relationships, failed many things, and all of that intervening time for me to learn everything that I am putting into practice today. And I'm not failing over the same thing. Like over the first couple of years, first 3 years, there was repeated failures, and that's where you have to really look and be like, why am I failing over the same thing? If it was because of money management, let me learn how to manage the money. If it was because of over promising and under delivering, let me learn not to do that again. If it was because of caring too much what other people think, I'm not doing that. I'm not making the same mistakes today that I did 5 years ago. And so for that reason, I'm comfortable and happy with myself. Now, my thing is, do not reduce yourself in order to make other people feel comfortable, or in order to not feel the embarrassment of failure, because failure is only embarrassing if you don't know where you're going. It's like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, it's only embarrassing if you don't have a plan, because it just means you're doing anything. You're not on a path. Someone asks you where you're going, you don't know where you're going, and that's embarrassing. Maybe there's an element of embarrassing. I'm not saying everyone who doesn't know where they're going should be embarrassed, but what I'm saying is, if you don't have a plan about within which this failure is taking place, then that's the problem. But if it's within an actual plan, then you shouldn't feel embarrassed. This is another lesson. There are things I know more about today than the people who succeeded at mediocrity don't know.
Come on.
So there's people who succeeded at their mediocre dreams, and I'm not saying that I'm not insulting them. Like, everyone has to do what they have to do for themselves. I'm just saying that you aimed here and you succeeded, and I think that's horrible. I aimed here and I failed, but I'm still heading there, and I think I should be proud about that. And so it's in that context that I see my failures. They are lessons. They are building blocks. Every time I fail and I learn, I'm closer to where I need to be. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but trust me, I'm not saying this like I'm not like Richard Branson saying this to you, sitting on my millions. I'm still in the gulag right now. I'm still trying to push forward. But it's really a lesson that's giving me a lot of return on investment, and so I can't give you anything else. That's what I think.
It's really interesting. It's interesting how perspective really changes everything, because I'm pretty sure that there will be people, maybe even who are watching now, who have experienced multiple failures in a range of different areas. Like you were saying, maybe they failed a course, maybe they have failed an exam, maybe they have failed a business, maybe they've been fired from multiple jobs, maybe they've experienced multiple failures in relationships, maybe they've experienced failure just within themselves, setting their own personal goals and not being able to achieve them. But it's funny that your perspective has allowed you to view these failures over a period of years in a way that actually encourages you to get up and try again. Whereas so many of us will experience or go through a failure or a bad situation, and it will keep us trapped. Like this, the thought of the shame means, oh, I'm never ever going to try that again. I'm never going to put myself out there again. I'm never going to go and sign up to another course again. I'm never going to put myself in a position to fail another exam again. I'm never going to put myself out there to get my heart broken again. Do you know what I mean? We take an alternative approach to the next steps after failure. But it seems like you've developed quite a healthy and empowering relationship with failure. How did you get to that point?
I think, again, this is where nature comes in. I'm just a hard-headed person, I guess, on one level. But on another level, I think you should read the stories of the people you idolize, or read the stories of the people you admire. Because when you read their stories, it humanizes them. And you understand that they didn't appear here out of a vacuum. Like when you read about a lot of your the people, whether you're a business person or academic or whatever it is that you're pursuing, the people that dominate your field. If you really look at their backstory, a lot of them failed severally. Like they failed so many times, and in fact probably failed worse than you. I've never been bankrupt. Many of the people I look up to have been bankrupt. I've never lost my family in the process. I've never had a major loss of reputation. I've never had to emigrate with my family to another country. There are so many things, hardships that the people you idolize experience before they got there. And in reading their stories and acclimatizing yourself with their experiences, you realize that actually I'm in good company. This is where I'm supposed to be. In the middle of failure and still looking up and taking it on the chin is exactly the environment that precedes success. And so if you're not there, then question. But if you're actually having to get up and fall down, you're actually in the same company as a lot of the people that you admire. And so that was one thing. But the other thing is to do with nature. Like you have to know yourself. I always say that knowing yourself is the best education you'll ever receive, or the primary education you'll need to receive. Because there are people who I would advise to do what I did, and there are other people I would say do not do this because I know you can't. And when I say can't, what I'm saying is I know you don't have the grit, you don't have the ability to walk into. Let me tell you something. I got married in 2016. I met my wife in 2013 when I was in Ghana pursuing a business opportunity that failed and took all my money. I was broke when I was in Ghana. And this is when I was talking to my wife at the time. And I'm talking to my wife and I have no money. Then the woman that I fancied and I liked, whatever, but I don't have any money. I'm in Ghana. She's over here. We're talking on FaceTime, whatever. And when it became clear that we kind of, had feelings and we were trying to, make it happen, I said to her, before you make that decision, there's something I want to tell you. If you want trips to Paris and dinners at the Shard, you need to date somebody else, because the next 5, 7, 10 years are not going to be that. They're going to be difficult years. I'm not going to have money. It's going to be failure, because this is where I'm trying to get to. But if you can ride with me during that period, we're going to live a life on the other side that nobody else, many of our peers are not able to live. That's why I said, just think about that. Take a minute, 3 days, come back and we'll talk again. And if you're happy to really like hustle with me, I promise you we're going to get there. But if you don't, then no hard feelings, like no love lost. So we had that conversation and she came back and she said, the fact that you're in Ghana doing your business and not just talking about it from the comfort of your 9 to 5 in London shows me that the type of man that you are, because I've spoken to a lot of guys who are like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I meet them in a year's time and they haven't taken one step forward into the direction of what they're talking about. The fact that you're in the middle of your hustle, far away, taking risks in a place where you're super exposed, it's not your country, you don't speak the language, you don't really know the environment, but you're over there pushing, makes me know that you will do what needs to be done for our family to succeed. So she will come down. So I was like, cool. But I need you to understand something. For the last 2 years, my wife has earned more money than me for the entire period we've known each other. And that looks a certain way to certain people. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's certain people who I know have said to her, like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? Like, your dude, before you married him, was still living at his mom's house. Is still doing this. He hasn't really settled down into a business that's working. Are you sure? And she's had to really, fight my corner in certain instances. But the reason why I say all of this is that if you don't know where you're going, the shame, the talking, the gossiping, the people saying, "Oh, Tom is this, Tom is that." Sometimes you're listening to like a church program, and these women are saying the type of men that they want, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to a guy who's not earning this, or I don't want to talk to a guy who's not." And they're describing you're the waste man they're talking about.
I feel hot.
You're like, "Ray, I need to switch off my camera because my head is." Do you know what I mean? They're talking about you, but you need to have such a steadfastness in where you're going that none of these things rock you. And there are people who I know can't. I know there's people who will be embarrassed and the shame would finish them and they can't. I know there's people who, if they show up to their fellowship having come off the bus, they can't. If they come off the train, they can't. If their garms are not at a certain level and everybody else is excelling, they can't do it. If everyone's talking about the house they just bought and they're still renting or they're still living with family, they don't have the resilience to be able to push through those situations. And so if you don't have it, you need to know yourself, because there's nothing wrong with not having it, because it means you're going to excel somewhere else that I can't. But you need to know what you have in order to know whether you can go on the journey that you're saying you're going to go on. It's like the Bible text that says, can a man, if you don't count the cost before you begin building your house, can you build a house without counting the cost to make sure you have what it takes? It's the same thing. If you haven't counted the cost, then you shouldn't go on the journey.
Wow. That's really powerful. Gosh, Tom, to be honest, we didn't have that much of a conversation about what we would be talking about today, but I had no idea this is where we would be going. It's a really interesting conversation. Tom, I really want you to turn your attention now to the people who are watching this live or who are on the replay, who are thinking, oh my goodness, I want some of that. Like, I want to develop that resilience. I want to develop that healthy relationship with failure. I want to give myself permission to be myself. Like, how does one cultivate that if it is not within their nature? How do you become like Tom?
Don't become like me. It's a difficult life. But I would say what I've learned so far, in order to be the best in your environment, whether it's entrepreneurship or in industry or in academia, I think you have to disabuse yourself of the notion that you're not going to fail. Like, forget that, delete it from your brain and give yourself the space to fail. Like, say to yourself, I'm about to jump into this head first and I may come out looking like an idiot, and be okay with that. Because you're going to need that, whether you're going to go for your doctorate or your MBA, because you could have failed your MBA. And then what would happen? Everyone will be like, oh, Nay, we know you're doing your MBA. How's that going? And then you have to tell everyone, my dissertation got to fail, or I didn't pass my exam. There's always a risk that you have to be okay with. And I think a lot of times the reason why people remain on the sidelines is that they want to wait for a situation where they can guarantee the success, and no such situation exists. No. The only time you can guarantee that you won't fail is when you do nothing, and in which case you have failed by default. And so I would say the beginning of the entire road, whichever way you're going to go, is disabuse yourself of the idea that you're not going to fail. Be okay with the idea that you're going to fail. Be okay with exposing your full self to the risk, and just do it. And measure. I say that. And I recognize there'll be people listening who have a family, who have responsibilities, who have mortgage to pay. They can't just go out there and take random risks. They're going to put their family at risk. I get that. So measure your risk in accordance to your context. I was a single young guy when I went to Ghana. If I have to eat rice once a day, I can do it. It's just me. I get it. If you have kids, you have a family, there's certain things you do anymore. But that's why I would say maybe more for those who are not married, no family yet. For you more than anybody, now is the time to be taking those wild risks. Go and do it. Just do whatever it is you're thinking of doing, because by the time you get to the other side and you're married or you have kids or you have a family to think about, the risk takes on a very different dimension, because
Absolutely.
the risk is not just about you and how you look and your failure. It's about other people. And I'm always mindful of the fact that it's one thing to have been taking risks when I was 26, 27, but now I've got my wife to think about. And it just so happens that I'm lucky to have a woman who's like, let's jump in together into the unknown and just see where we land. So I'm blessed in that respect, but it just becomes more difficult the more responsibilities you have in life. But the idea that you're not going to fail is the beginning of failure.
Wow. Tom, all right. Let's just put a pin right here. Guys, my fan has literally just switched off. Why? I absolutely do not know, but it's not a good sign. More technical difficulties, but it's a good thing. Here's one I prepared earlier. So Tom, I wanted to jump in there, because you speak about people who, when you were younger and you were taking your risks, you had no wife, no children, no family, nothing to think about. It was just you. But I want to know if you have anything for people who do have some responsibilities. And if you don't, I'd like to chime in. Sure. Do you have anything for those of us who, because like I'm at, for those of you who don't know already, you guys see, well, you definitely might see me every now and again, give you some bad looks that way, because I've got some little people at the door who try to get in here. I'm a solo parent. I'm raising these 2 children with the support of my immediate family. However, that didn't stop my ability to dream. I've still got things that I want to do, still got huge aspirations. So for the people who are watching, Tom, how does someone like me still go and be themselves if the person who they're trying to be doesn't fit into the conventional norm? What do I do?
I think I've asked myself this relative to my wife, relative to my marriage, because there's certain times I've done stuff and I'm like, boy, I've got to think about it. I've got other people to think about now. Like I've got to, and I agree, you're doing an amazing job as a mum and as an entrepreneur. Like what you're doing is incredible. So let me actually begin there. And thank you for this platform. But what I would say is calculate the risk of not doing anything versus the risk of doing something. Because I think we often see risk in the context of doing something, but we never calculate the risk of inaction. And so if you don't do something and you go for the safe road, whatever that safe route is, what risk are you exposing your kids to? Are you exposing your family to by not doing the thing? And by being safe? One risk could be it now means they don't have a certain kind of inheritance, which means when they become older, they have to begin from the same place you began. That's a risk. It could be that they can't pursue the education that they need to pursue because you can't afford it. That's a risk. It could be that if there's any kind of medical emergencies in the future, you can't do anything in order to resolve it because you don't have the funds to be able to. That's a risk. There's so many other risks that come along with inaction. Although it is safe today, the risk is coming, and so pay forward. And so you have to kind of do this thing where you do the risk assessment, as it were, and figure out what is actually exposing my family to more risk: me staying safe, or me exposing myself to some calculated immediate risk, but then the gains in the future are so exponentially more or bigger, exponentially bigger. And that's what's carrying me now. Is if I go back and get a conventional 9 to 5, or even if I do an MBA and take the job offer, as you were in a position of doing, let's say I earn 50K or 60K. For a lot of people, that's amazing.
Yeah.
For me, I would have failed catastrophically.
Come on.
If after all of this, I land on 60K, I'll be like, what was the point? And then I look forward and I think, if I'm on 60K, that means my wife really has to carry on working, like for the type of life that we want to live. She doesn't really have the option of saying, we've got some kids now, I would rather not work. She doesn't have that option. And so now she has to do something and I want to be in a place where she can do it if she wants and doesn't have to, doesn't want to. And so I calculated all of these risks, and so did my wife. Because actually last year I was going to go back to work. I think you and I spoke about an MBA and doing some courses, and I'm going to go down that road and go back to work. And it's my wife who said, if you do that, I'm going to kick you in the face, because I have not sacrificed all of this time and going through all of this headache to just go and do something you could have done at the beginning, and we could have avoided all this. And so the risk of addiction.
You know, I had a mentor, sorry to cut you, Tom, but I had a mentor once who said to me, it would be almost a crime to pay the price but not get the prize. Like to sacrifice for however many years to give up X, Y, and Z with the view to pursuing and getting this prize, but then giving up right before it's about to be manifest in your life.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And so for me, I've been through enough of those embarrassing shame, like I'm getting a lift home as a big man, I don't have my own car. That I've been through too much of that for me to now say I'm just gonna fall back into something safe. I can't do it. Like everything within me won't let me do it. And so that's why I would say calculate the risk of inaction, because oftentimes you're paying more for inaction than you are for action.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tom, gosh, I could honestly speak to you for ages on this, and I actually think offline we're gonna have to continue a conversation at some point. But Tom, I really want to know. There are, you know, we've been speaking for about an hour and 15 minutes or so. There's going to be people who joined late. There's going to be people who may have had to leave early. And I just really want to know if you were to be able to, here's a message coming. I do have to definitely have to bring in. She says, that first lady is lucky. And so you are. Very beautiful, presented to us with responsibilities. Absolutely.
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky.
Some would say he's blessed.
Very blessed.
Tom, we've been speaking for some time. Like we've danced around a variety of different topics. We've explored a few different things here tonight. But if there were only one message that you wanted the people to walk away with, if there were only one message that you wanted everyone to leave here with, whether they're watching live or on the replay, what would that one message be?
At the beginning of this year, many people in your audience and you and I, we heard about the news of Andrew dying at the peak of his powers. He was doing amazing stuff in Reading as a pastor. He was doing amazing stuff with his family, like at the peak of his powers in every respect. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, lost his life. And what I often think about is this life ends so quickly and sometimes often abruptly. Being a little bit embarrassed, failing a little bit, making others feel uncomfortable mean nothing when you're on your way out. There is nobody on their deathbed who's like, I'm really glad I didn't start that business, because imagine how embarrassed I would have been if it failed. No one. Because you just realize how futile all of those things are. And so if I was going to say one thing, it is be everything that you are, be it 100%. And don't reduce yourself to make others feel bigger. Don't not do something because you're afraid to fail. Failure is literally part of success. Like they are the same coin. They're just two sides of the same coin. You have to go through one in order to get the other in 99.9% of the cases. So just whatever it is you've been putting off, whatever it is you've been saying, I'm too scared to do it, whatever it is you've been saying, I'll do it next year, do it now in these unprecedented COVID-19 infested times. Do it now. Like, just do it. Take the risk. Just do it. Because who knows whether your life is promised for tomorrow, A, and B, when you're on your deathbed, it's not going to matter. Whatever you're afraid of is not going to matter. And your future self will thank you. When you're free, and when you have the autonomy, when you have the financial freedom, when you have the peace of mind that comes from that, you're going to thank yourself. Yeah, be yourself 100%. Fail your way to... that's beautiful. I couldn't have put it better myself. Fail your way to success 110%. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but when you start doing it, you'll realize the goal that is. Because you're going to fail. I guarantee whatever it is you want to do, when you start doing it, you're going to fail. Accept that from today. Just accept that right now. You're going to fail. Your first attempt is going to be failure. It's going to be it's gonna be whack. Whatever your first business is, it's gonna have holes in it. It's not gonna work. But then maybe your second one will, maybe your third one, maybe your 10th one will, and that's the point. By the time you get to your 10th one, you're gonna be a Donny, and it's all because you failed the first 9 times. I think you have to publish a book to the youth and also to the grown-ups. Believe me or not, what you just shared with reality. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leash.
Tom, you know, it's what you have. Listen, you don't know like what you have shared today. I don't think you'll ever fully know what the impact is. It's funny, actually. I had a friend who I haven't spoken to in many, many years who contacted me. In fact, I contacted him for something completely different after one of the shows. And he actually talked to me about a lesson that he took from the show, and he went and passed it on to his nephew. And you know, I haven't spoken to this guy in years, and I would never have known had I not spoken to him. And I think it just goes to show how far a valuable lesson can spread when we actually do put it out there. Yeah. And so, Tom, I'm sure that there are going to be people who are going to be reaping the rewards of applying the lessons that you have shared with us today, and people that you may never ever get to know about, people that you may never ever get to hear about, but just know that you have done an amazing thing. And I can even speak for myself right now, if not for anybody else. That what you have said has been confirmation for me on so many levels. So people, if at times you see me closing my eyes and just proper taking it in, just know, because in that moment, he was speaking directly to me. Hence why I'm saying, listen, we're going to have to speak afterwards because I've got some things to talk about. Christine, one of our former guests, says, wise words of wisdom spoken with the voice of experience. Thank you for sharing. And I must echo those sentiments as well. Thank you so much, Tom. Now, Tom, one of the reasons this whole show even started was because I really wanted to try my best to build a platform to give people like you, people like me, the opportunity to expose ourselves to new audiences and showcase the brilliant work that we are doing. So I want to know right now, how can people connect with you? How can people buy into you? And notice I say buy and not tap, because guys, here, listen, we are part of our businesses out here. But, you know, seriously, how can people connect with you? Is there anything that you're doing that we can support? Tell us, how can we find you after this?
Thank you so much, Nate. So, like I said at the beginning, I'm a menswear stylist by trade. That's what I've been doing, and that's what my business has been. Lockdown has had an adverse effect on that business because of the retail sector and so on and so forth. And a lot of my clients are Arab and Russian, so they're not coming here right now. So I use this opportunity to relaunch into a different direction, which is the digital strategy side. And so what I'm doing is helping small and medium-sized businesses develop and expand their online presence and their digital strategies to be able to get the most out of this new brave frontier that we're all going into, where people are taking digital more seriously. And so I can help you with that. I still have 1 or 2 clients on the styling side, so I'm still styling. So if you know any magazine shoots or any kind of wardrobe stuff for TV or private clients, I'm doing all of that still. But I am beginning to shift my focus towards digital. The brand is called Odd Guy Digital. All of the online stuff is in the works now. It will be ready by the end of this month. But for now, you can find me on Thomas_Mwadime, which is my Instagram. So Thomas_Mwadime, and exactly the same for Facebook, Twitter, and all the rest of the good stuff. But I think Instagram is really where I'm most active. Yeah, Instagram is where I'm most active. That's where I talk about everything else I'm going to be doing. So when everything launches, when the websites are ready, that's where I'm going to announce. So you can find me there.
So guys, on the screen at Thomas_Mwadime, please make contact. And if you need his services, I am sure he will be more than happy to serve you.
Yes, I mean, the way I'm doing it is we can have an initial on the digital content side, on the digital strategy side. If you guys if you have a business and you're interested in that service, give me a shout. We'll have an initial conversation just to see what you require and if I can deliver, and then we'll take it from there. So just shout me for an initial chat. That's free. We can talk and see what you need done.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Thomas, one of the reasons I need a fresh I need a fresh look for Callie. Hey, Nigel.
No worries, Nigel, no worries.
One of the reasons why I even started this show, as I said, was to give people like you the opportunity to come on and expose yourself to a new audience. Tom, I started the show in May the 25th, and we've been going consistently week after week, every Sunday. For those of for some of my friends who've heard me speak privately, will sometimes hear about the times, oh God, I can't be bothered. I'm done with this show. Had enough of the Naomi Power show. But you know what? It's days like today, and to be honest, it's every week it happens, but especially, days like today when I think, gosh, this is exactly the reason why. Because if you are having a rough weekend, if you had a bit of a blip like I did this weekend, something like this is exactly what you need to kind of pick you up again and to get you back on track and to help you to remember what really is important in life, to help you to remember what it is you're supposed to be doing, and most importantly, the reason why. But above all of that, I believe that it is so, so, so important for us to support and champion one another when we are on that journey, when we're failing, and when we are failing forward on that journey. Because it's so easy to wait until Thomas is so famous that you can't even reach him anymore. Like, he's changed his number. I'm trying to call Tom's phone, and it's like, has not been I get like, let's not wait for our people to get to that stage before we applaud them, before we salute them, before we celebrate them. We have such, oh my God, we have such incredible value within our communities. We have such incredible value just a stone's throw away. And too often we look to other people who have the status and who have already built the name to celebrate and to go after. But you know what? This and episodes like this helped us to all remember that, you know what, we've got talent right here. There are some people that you are connected to. Even you may well be that person that has the value to share. And I believe all of us have value in some way, shape, or form to share. So I just want to encourage everyone, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, to take some time to appreciate yourself, but also to appreciate, support, and celebrate the people around you who you see who are doing things. Tom, I shared something on social media not too long ago about all the different ways that we can support one another that don't even have to cost a penny. A referral doesn't cost a penny. A like, a comment, a little subscribe, it doesn't cost anything. Mentioning someone else's name in the right room does not cost anything, but it can do absolutely so much. It could literally transform the lives of people around you who are trying. So Tom, I guess this is my way of mentioning your name in the room. This is my way of trying to, expose you to an audience who you may not have come into contact with before. And I truly do hope that good things will come as a result of what it is we're doing here. As I said, we started back in May, and we had on average about 1,500 or so people tuning in over the course of a week. And I'm not literally blown away. Like, I looked at the numbers last week for last week's show, and it was in excess of 7,000 views. Wow. It just goes to show that there are going to be people, Tom, who are here, who will hear this message. They may not be on right now, but there will be people who hear this message at some point who are going to be able to be liberated as a result of what you have given today, as a result of your honesty, as a result of your authenticity. And I just really want to publicly thank you for that, because you didn't have to do it. You could have come on here with a nice suit and acting like everything is all good and like you woke up like that. But no, you come and you brought the realness. And for that, I definitely have to thank you.
Can I say something, Nate? I think let me also use this moment to celebrate you as a Black woman, Black queen. You're doing an amazing job. I don't even know how you do this as well as be a parent and all the other responsibilities that you have. So I take my hat off to you. You're killing it. And if I can support you in any way, shout me. And I will never change my number on you, Nate. I will always send you. I will send you a little DM to say this is my new number. Never, ever that. But thank you so much. You're killing it, and you inspire a lot of people, myself included.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Tom. I really, really do appreciate it. And it is nice to get appreciation every now and again, because as you well know, entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey. It can be really, really tough. It can be really, really difficult. And let me just shout out everyone who's in the comments right now with your words of support, with your words of affirmation. Thank you all so much. I'm not bringing it up on the screen. I'm a little bit shy like that. Thank you all the same. Thank you, Lesh. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you so, so much. Guys, we have reached the end of another episode, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Thank you for everyone who commented. Thank you for everyone who shared the broadcast. Thank you for everyone who took the time to really take in the words of wisdom that Thomas shared with us today. And my hope and my wish for all of you is that you apply it and that you make your lives better. You build a brighter future for yourself, one step at a time. And so, guys, you know, without you, there absolutely wouldn't be a show. So thank you. But most of all, Thomas, thank you. Thank you for giving us your time today. My goodness, we didn't plan to be on for like an hour and a half, but I thank you so much for you having the patience and carving out the time to share with us all this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And so, guys, I want to invite you all to join me here again next week at the same time. Yes, that's right. We're going to be live from 8 p.m. next week with another episode of the Naomi Empower Show, where we're going to be bringing you another special guest to share some life lessons, wisdom, motivation, and empowerment for the week ahead. So on this note, I'm going to wish every one of you a fantastic, productive week. I hope you go out there and be the people that you were made to be. All right, guys. Take care. See you, everyone. Bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.